You are listening to the Go Get Them show. This is a discussion that inspires entrepreneurs to pursue their passion to create meaningful, impactful, and sustainable companies in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This is your host, Arun Krishnakumar, together with my co hosts, Maxon T and Sheila Mburu. We sit down with entrepreneurs, operators, and investors across frontier markets to discover their experiences, lessons learned, and how they make an impact so you can too.
Do less of competition and more of competition. Okay, and that way
you'll be across Africa. Really excited to hear about your experiences and also some of your perspectives on opportunities across the continent. So to start.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Go Get Them. I'm delighted to have Chidi Okpala, the CEO of Asante Financial Services Group, join us as guest today. Chidi has had a distinguished career spanning across 3 decades in fintech, retail financial services, and strategy consulting. He's currently the CEO of Asante Financial Services Group, a high-impact digital financial services company primarily focused on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises and consumers in sub-Saharan Africa. Previous to this, Chidi has held senior executive roles across several firms in Africa. His previous role was as the Group MD Digital and FinTech at Atlas Mara, where he drove the innovation, digital financial services, and financial inclusion agenda across sub-Saharan Africa. He also served as the digital and head of Airtel Money in Africa, overseeing 17 countries across Africa. He built Airtel Money to become one of the largest providers of retail financial services in the continent, with 12 million active customers and over 100 million and 2 billion in monthly transactions count and value. Prior to joining Bharti Airtel International, he was the CEO of retail banking businesses for United Bank for Africa Group, managing personal banking in 19 African countries. He earlier worked with Accenture as a senior strategy consultant in the financial services industry group. Chidi is a Chevening scholar, holds BSc Finance and an MBA from the University of Nigeria. He also has a Sloan MSc in Management from the London Business School. Chidi, delighted to have you with us today.
Thanks, Arun, and I'm pleased to be here.
Great. So let's start with a very simple question, right? In the last 10 years, you've been very, very deeply entrenched in fintech Africa. And how has your journey been from being the founder and CEO of Airtel Money to being the CEO of Asante Financial Services Group today? And what has the journey kind of taught you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that question. So, firstly, I mean, I'm one of those very few professionals that have had the rare privilege of being able to work across 4 industries. So I've had commercial banking, I've had strategy consulting, I've had telecoms, and now fintech. And each of these industry parallels have their own different DNAs, as you probably know. And so moving from commercial banking into telecoms was like night and day. And then moving from telecoms into now fintech, some differences, some nuances, but I would say that what I'm currently doing is an extension of what I did in Airtel Money. So most of the work we did in Airtel Money was around driving financial inclusion, okay? People that hitherto had no access to basic financial services, we used mobile money as an entry-level sort of access for them. And so all the services and provisions that we had under the mobile money framework were sort of elementary, okay? Introducing them to wallets, introducing them to basic payments, which was necessary, okay, to drive them or sort of formalize them within the financial services industry. Now, what we're doing in Asante is consistent, but it takes it a couple of notches above. And so what we're doing is not just financial inclusion, but what we seek to achieve is financial independence, okay? And so we want to, or what we provide is beyond just wallets and payments, but we're taking it to the next level. We're enabling people to, number one, have formal bank accounts, okay? And not just a basic, CASA, current account or savings account, but being able to open like deposit accounts as well, where they can place funds for a much longer period and enjoy a higher interest. We'll also be able to extend loans. Okay, we provide diverse forms of loans for both businesses and individuals, and in different forms. And these loans are not just consumption loans, but they're also productive loans. And so the loans are tailored to the activities because we use a lot of machine learning. And so we're able to come up with a sort of credit that helps them to involve themselves in more productive endeavors that are a lot useful. What we also do, especially for the small businesses, is we provide management toolkits, because the real difference between the micro, small enterprises and your proper, well-established organizations is actually the absence of tools and systems. Okay? And so what we're providing to them is those basic tools, whether it's bookkeeping, inventory management, invoicing, payroll management, that help them to introduce some form of system, structure, and formality to their business. And what that does is it infuses resilience so that they're not vulnerable to the changes or in the economies or political systems that the geography is used to. So it's consistent, and very importantly too is, when I moved from commercial banking to telecoms, one of the striking differences between the industries is that in the telecom sector, there's an obsession about the consumer. There's an obsession about data about the consumer. Okay, unlike banks that are subtly arrogant. Okay, they come up with products and just force it down the throats of the customers. The telcos are a reverse. Okay, there is so much investment around understanding the consumer, around tracking their behavior, monitoring their behavior, understanding what those drivers are, and running campaigns to drive specific responses. Okay, and that's one of the learning that I've actually taken and migrated to Asante, and we use that in our practices on a daily basis.
You mentioned a couple of things there, Chidi. One is you mentioned about credit, and you also mentioned about financial independence and the tools. One of the things that's quite fundamental, and often it's a struggle in emerging markets, is a presence of a credit bureau. Like we have the experience of the world, Equifax of the world in this part of the, in at least in the West, we often find that missing in emerging markets. So how have you gone about kind of leapfrogging that particular infrastructural element to underwrite some of these lending facilities?
Sure. Well, first, let me look. I think most countries in Africa actually have credit bureaus. Okay, so I used to be on the board of one, CLC, Credit Reference Company in Nigeria, which is an affiliate of Dun & Bradstreet, and even here in Kenya, we work with Credit Info and we work with TransUnion. The challenge with credit bureaus in Africa is because the banking penetration is limited, and so the sort of data sets you have are also limited. Okay, because credit bureaus, the way they've been designed, okay, Equifax and all of them, has actually been primarily to cater to bank customers. Okay, and so yes, they are present, but their coverage is quite limited. And so the way we've responded to that is we've used different mechanisms. Number one is we designed this whole concept of embedded ecosystem-based lending. And so we know that most of the people we are targeting don't have bank accounts. And so, but if you approach them independently, you will not be able to rely on the data that they share with you as a basis to extend money to them. And so we said, okay, look, we do also know that they function within ecosystems of large corporations, whether it's telecoms companies, FMCGs, super apps, and all of that. So our model has always been, we partner with these entities as distribution channels, and they expose us to these small businesses and individuals within their ecosystems. And with the consent of these segments, we have access to their data. Okay, conventional, non-conventional, alternative data sets. And we do have a decision engine, which is hybrid. It's both rules-based and it's machine learning-based. And we can actually, make credit decisions with sufficiently high level of precision on the back of those diverse data sets and be able to extend. And it's worked for us, okay? And so far, we are able to achieve default rates that are less than 4%. Obviously, it's taking some time to achieve this sort of low level of defaults, but we've demonstrated that it's possible. And you can actually build a credit model around those data sets.
Absolutely. So thanks for that. And one of the things I find about fintech in Africa is perhaps it doesn't get better than that for growth opportunities, right? If you're looking across the world, you have Southeast Asia, which is pretty exciting. Still, when you're looking for growth opportunity, fintech Africa is perhaps the place to be.
Absolutely.
Now, as cool and sexy as it looks, I'm sure your day to day is not like that. I'm sure it's filled with challenges.
Oh, yeah.
And with COVID, especially in the last 18 months now, it's a nightmare. So how have you? What are the day to day challenges that you face, despite all the external help and the buzz? What are the challenges you have, and how are you dealing with it?
Well, I mean, quite a couple. I mean, look, it gets more exciting because of the challenges. Okay, I mean, a life without challenges is obviously a life of failure. So, look, COVID in particular was challenging for us, especially last year. It was really, really difficult. Obviously, our primary market is Kenya, and so when COVID struck on the 16th of March, there was a major lockdown and all of that. So last year we were only able to trade for 6 months, and so and for us, it wasn't just about our organization; it was also about our clients. We were, I dare say, that we are the largest provider of financial services to micro SMEs in Kenya, formal financial services. We had in excess of 3,000 clients within the Horeca industry, cafes, bars, restaurants, and all of that, over 3,000. And they were all shut down, okay, for at least 4 months. And so it was extremely difficult for them. And being a provider of credit, we also could not support them. That was really, really challenging for us and our clients. But we also had our staff that we needed to protect. And one assurance I gave my staff, in spite of all the challenges, I said, look, no staff will be asked to leave because of COVID. And nobody's salary, okay, will be cut because of COVID. And so you find yourself in a situation where you're not producing, you're not making income, but at the same time, you had your payroll that was fixed, and we had to meet them as a when due. So last year was challenging, but looking back today, we're glad and pleased that we took the decisions that we took. Number one, our staff are really dedicated. We had competitors, that suffered as a result. A lot of them laid off their staff, and our staff are able to look at their contemporaries within the industry and say that, look, in spite of all, we're able to keep them. But at the same time, as soon as there was a flicker of hope in terms of the restoration of activities, we quickly started supporting our SME clients, and which today they appreciate. Obviously, we adopted an industry-based model. We looked at, those that were in the medical space, the pharmacies. We started intervening and supporting them with credit early on. Those that were in retail, because people still had to buy their beverages and home supplies, we started supporting them. And so we came up with diverse models to support specific sectors because we were able to actually segment and still supported them, even when the banks or the MFIs and all of that actually had shut them out. And today we are reaping from that because we are seeing a strong bounce back on the back of the sort of support that we gave them in spite of all the difficulties that they experienced. Now, but beyond COVID, the sort of day-to-day challenges we have are, number one, people, okay, being able to find or upgrading Okay, not that you don't find people, but it's a challenge being able to make those decisions, finding the right developers, finding strong people in data science, finding people in marketing and all of that. So on almost on a weekly basis, I interview at least 6 to 10 people for diverse roles. Because one of the things I've recognized as a leader is that this business at the end of the day is about people. It's not technology. It's not marketing. No, it's about people. It's the people that will deliver the technology. It's the people that will deliver the marketing. It's the people that will deliver the finance. And so it's something I'm quite meticulous about. It's number one on my agenda as a CEO of a business in terms of making sure that I find the right people, that I resource them, that I incentivize them, and that I motivate them to be highly productive. So that's my number one goal as a CEO of the business. And I think the third one for us is around funding. Um, Funding remains a challenge for us in Africa. We don't have as many options as people in the West. And so it remains a big issue around whether it's equity funding or debt funding or grant funding and the right funding, okay? Because you could actually find debt funding, but they are so expensive. So that remains a challenge and takes a good chunk of my time engaging with our existing investors, reaching out to new ones, and making sure that we have the right supply of the right type of funding to support our growth, even as we grow and scale.
That's great. I was actually going to that. That is the next question, right? So we've had, I think, in the last 10 years, I think the amount of VC funding that's come into Africa has kind of leapfrogged. I think it's grown crazily. And last year, I think it was 2020. Despite COVID, there was about 1.5 billion deployed into Africa by VCs. And I still understand with the potential that the continent has to offer, that is
Sure.
still kind of scratching the surface. So, in your view, what needs to get better for entrepreneurs to access funding? I understand it's a challenge, but what are the things that you would like to see to make your lives easier?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. One is um, our being able to tell our story and create the right narrative around the opportunities and the success stories, what we are doing. Okay. So that needs to be better articulated for the sources of capital. And like I said, the truth is, there's a single story about Africa. And so, because quite a number of people have actually not visited, it's all about the narrative that they've seen on CNN or they've read in the media, and that begins to form their judgments. And so we have to tell our story, okay, using our own voices, using our own mouthpieces to the relevant audience to drive the attraction. And then the second has to do with um, you know the the VC ecosystem in the continent as well. And there are quite a number of individuals, there are quite a number of businesses that have the resources to be able to support startups. But it has not yet tickled their fancy. Okay, a lot of them they always prefer, whether it's real estate or whether it's a capital market or whether it's a money market in the respective jurisdictions. I think again, a lot of work needs to be done by the government through the right incentives, and also from us that are entrepreneurs on the ground to tell our story to them, to reach out to them, and get them interested and enthused about supporting us. But I think the other third thing is around collaboration. Okay, as an industry, working together, sharing information, do less of competition and more of competition. Okay, and that way there'll be a lot more success stories. And when there are a lot more success stories, it attracts a lot more capital, and then we're able to celebrate it, unlike what is currently happening.
So to add to that point you mentioned, it's very insightful because I've seen that in India, right? The first batch of entrepreneurs who were the kind of the CEOs of Infosys, Wipro, and those that generation.
Sure.
practically employed me, but they also inspired a further generation of entrepreneurs like Flipkart, Snapdeal, and now we have like almost 3, 4 generations of entrepreneurs who've come up from
Absolutely.
India.
Absolutely.
So I think we need. I'm glad you mentioned that point. It's quite, and I'm seeing that with Indonesia. I'm working with several Indonesian firms on a day-to-day basis, and we've had the Grab and the Gojeks
Yeah,
who've
good.
done really well, and now we're seeing the next generation of entrepreneurs who are coming to the fore, and it's very nice to see that growth story across emerging markets.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of Africa, one of the things I find is there are certain African ecosystem players who are doing extremely well in kind of being participating in some of these growth stories. And for me, the one name that comes to mind is Mastercard. Of course, I know that because through yourself and a few other organizations I work with, I know that Mastercard are quite active in this space. Are there any others who are working very closely with entrepreneurs like yourself, like firms that need that little bit of a hand holding in terms of getting them to the next stage through an infrastructure support?
Sure. I mean, look, I think Mastercard has been quite bullish about the continent, and they've been very highly supportive. They're also one of our strategic partners, and I truly like them. But there are also a couple more. Okay, you do have for the investment community, firms like Y Combinator. They've been quite supportive and really aggressive in the continent. You also have some VCs like Goodwill. I mean, Goodwill has been they're also investors in Asante, but they've taken they've gone the extra mile in terms of supporting quite a number of startups in the continent. They've recently raised another fund, about $50 million, to support really micro level sort of startups in the continent. But if you look at the biggies, you also find like Google. I mean, Google has been trying as well. They've made investments in markets like Nigeria, in South Africa. They've been quite active in supporting a number of startups. Facebook is still early days. Twitter, early days, but they're all beginning to pick interest and providing support at diverse levels as well.
And in terms of the kind of ecosystem, when we talk about ecosystem, again, it's a very loosely used word. The fintech development in Europe, when I say again, use loosely using Europe as a continent, you have UK and the mainland Europe, or European continent, at least the Western Europe continent. I've seen that the growth in this part of the world has largely benefited from the Eurozone kind of the setup. And we've had passporting of licenses and firms using their the regulatory approvals in the UK to do business in Europe. Do you see that happening through the African continental free trade area? Because there's been a huge part of the continent that's taken part here. And in the past, at least what I have actually learned, although not firsthand, through my kind of secondary research, is that often there's been that interoperability problem when there is a firm that's done really well in payments in one part of, say, Kenya, maybe they struggle to kind of expand into Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa even.
Yeah.
Now, do you see this African continental free trade area or that particular setup really contributing to this and kind of solving the interoperability problem?
Yeah. So look, so for now, what has happened in the continent? I mean, we've seen examples in the UMOA region in West Africa, and also in the CIMAC, okay, where you just need a license from the central bank, and you can passport it across those geographies. There's also a form of light model in East Africa, okay, where yes, you have a license in Kenya. It does not necessarily mean you can passport it, but it's easier because of proximity and because of the Kenyan shillings and probably even M-Pesa, which is also accepted in a Uganda or a Rwanda or a Tanzania informally, okay? But I think with the AFCTA and some of the initiatives of the AU, it's going to fast track that whole process, almost akin to what's happening in the EU. There are quite a number of initiatives ongoing as we speak, okay? One around movement of labor and capital, okay, with a single AU passport, okay. Today, I have a Nigerian passport. I want to get into Kenya. It's seamless though, but I still need to apply for a visa. If I want to go into a Tanzania, I have to apply for a visa earlier on, and all of that. So some countries have been quite aggressive around about it, like in Rwanda, which is extremely friendly. But we think with that whole AU initiative, it will fast track it. There are also initiatives by the Afrexim Bank to create a Pan-African switch that will facilitate seamless real-time movement of funds at both micro and macro level. Okay, so it's not just settlement, but to allow real-time. Okay, people are able to move money seamlessly across the entire continent. So I think over the next 18 to 24 months, there will be seismic shifts around that whole, not just payments, but around free movement of labor, of capital to support not just trade, but to support investments as well.
That's great, and I think with the recovery from COVID, hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months, I think that if that kind of coincides with the maturity of that AU kind of a setup, and that is definitely going to help, and we probably could see 1.5 billion worth of VC funding double to 3 billion in probably
Certainly,
2 years' time, and
certainly,
and I hope you benefit from that growth story as
certainly.
well. Now, looking at all that, what excites you mostly? I mean, often sometimes when I'm excited, I can't sleep. I just wake up at 4 a.m. and I start kind of crunching things out. How do I do that? It's super exciting. So what keeps you awake? What gets you up at 4 a.m. and excites you about what you're doing?
Look, specifically around our business, look, and I will give you two metrics to support that. So if you look at the continent, according to the GSMA, which is the GSM Association, Africa in 2019 had barely 500 million phone connections, mobile phone connections, with about 45% smartphone penetration. Okay? At the current growth rate, by 2025, the continent will have about 700 million phone connections and about 55% smartphone penetration. Now, the implication of that is that Africa will have additional 200 million unique Africans with smartphones. Just imagine that is the, I mean, what's the population of continental Europe? That's about the size of the United States of America. Okay, that will open up a vista of diverse opportunities for us that are players in the continent. That's huge and transformational, and we're really excited about it. The second is a report that I got from the World Bank around the credit gap for MSMEs in the continent. It's currently in excess of $300 billion and is growing on an annual basis. $300 billion. That space has been considered as untouchable by the commercial banks, by our traditional banks. And who can play in that space is MFIs. MFIs are obviously limited because they've not leveraged technology. And if you look at the people that own and operate them, technology leverage will take them a lot longer time to be able to embrace. But it will largely be fintechs like Asante. And so the space is huge. The opportunity is just there looking at us. All that we've done over the last 4 years has just been a tiny drop in the ocean. And that's really what excites us. And so for us is, how quickly can we mobilize resources and capital to be able to develop the right kind of solutions, to have the right kind of funding, to penetrate this market, to actually tap for these opportunities for both scale and impact. That's what keeps me awake at night. And that's what we're really
Wow,
excited about.
that's Chidi. I think that's been extremely exciting, and I think we'll close that with the conversation with that. It's been really really an insightful conversation with you, and thanks for making time for us.
Thanks, Arun. Really appreciate it.